Welcome to California in Focus. I'm David Mastio. Today we're talking about choo-choo trains. Joining me today is the Center Square's Kenneth Schrupp, California reporter for the Center Square. Kenneth, what's going on with trains today in California?
Hi, David. We do have some news on trains in California, but this news applies to the whole country because we have a new vision for national passenger rail being articulated by the Biden-Harris administration. In this case, U.S. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg went out to say, my kids who are 3 right now won't know a country that didn't have high-speed rail and excellent passenger rail at this groundbreaking event for a $2.3 billion new railroad bridge over the Potomac. This bridge was funded with about $729 million in federal grants that are part of about $66 billion in Biden-Harris rail investments that put California at the centerpiece of the new rail agenda.
So how is 19th century technology going to take us into the future in California? I understand the trains there are not going so well.
The idea is that we will not just have trains running at 19th century speeds, but maybe at 20th century speeds, as in something somewhere in the speed range of a slower Japanese bullet train. We have 2 such projects under construction in California. We have a state government project that's supposed to connect Los Angeles to San Francisco, and a private project to connect Los Angeles to Vegas.
How much was the government program supposed to cost when it was originally put in place? Tell me when it was originally put in place, and how much is it going to cost now?
Well, California voters approved this LASF line in 2008 with a $10 billion bond. You know, they didn't really know how much it was going to cost, but $10 billion was supposed to at least get the ball rolling. Unfortunately, people who were born when that was approved are now old enough to drive from San Francisco to Los Angeles on their own, but there's no train done. There's actually not a single section of the track that is done, that is operating. We won't have that first section operational until 2033 at a cost of about $33 billion. It'll connect Merced and Bakersfield, smaller cities in the sparsely populated Central Valley. It's unclear how many people are going to ride it, even. And the total cost of the project is now estimated to be about $135 billion, $99 billion of which is unfunded. The state doesn't even have funding for the Central Valley small section that's supposed to be the first section. They were trying to get $8 billion in new federal grants over the next 5 years to plug in that funding gap. But again, we don't really know where that money is going to come from, because it's likely the federal government will have to slow down spending. We did spend we're going to spend more than $1 trillion on interest on the national debt this year. That's more than we're spending on defense. So it'll be difficult to see where all this money to even finish California's rail project is going to come from.
California is not going to come up with the cash, are they?
No, California barely closed a $47 billion budget shortfall, as they like to call it, this year. And the only source of funding for the high-speed rail within California, which is the tax revenue from the state's cap-and-trade program, that's supposed to expire in a few years. So they need to renew this funding source, maybe even increase it if they want to have any chance at finishing this train between 2 places that not many people will likely end up taking. And by the way, California's population decline has resulted in a major decrease in the number of passenger rides they expect people to take between LA and SF. They used to project that you'd have 31.3 million rides on that line. Now they say it'll be 28.4 million because too many people have just left the state. And they're going to plan on charging $86 each way, which is more than flying costs. And it's also supposed to take 2.5 hours. Probably will take much longer than that because the train has to stop, and it's over 450 miles, I believe. So again, it's probably going to take several times longer than flying and cost about twice as much as flying. So I don't see why people are going to take this.
How is the private LA to Vegas line doing?
The private LA to Vegas line, very different very different outcome and picture here. This line is by a company called Brightline, which operates the only private passenger railway in the U.S. It runs it in Florida, and apparently it makes some money off that. Of course, the real way that private railways have ever made money is because they control the real estate interests near the tracks and stations, and so they get to capture much of the increase in value from having the transportation system in place. That's actually how most of Los Angeles was developed and why LA used to have trains. This Brightline project broke ground earlier this year. It's supposed to take about 4 years and cost $12 billion to be built. $3 billion of that did come from government grants, but the rest is coming from the sale of bonds. So this program shows that this LA SF rail program is going to carry half as many passengers as the LA to Las Vegas rail at nearly 4 times the cost of construction.
Well, that's impressive, but they haven't built it yet, so we're going to have to come back and check in on this story as the private rail line gets along, because there's still plenty of time for there to be hiccups and problems in their construction, just like there's been with the California state government program.
Exactly. However, the California state government program is essentially 16 years old. Soon it'll be old enough to vote. This Brightline project, barring the finding of some new tortoises or birds that extend approvals or delay construction, should be done at least within 8 years, which would make it twice as efficient in terms of time than the current LA SF line.
Kenneth, thanks for joining us today. Listeners can keep up with this story and more at thecentersquare.com.